Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today for this webinar. As the title suggests, we will talk about setting up a stable CD pipeline with Bamboo and AWS. My name is Sepideh and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Atlassian Bamboo. We will also have Shemek, our Bamboo Architect with us, and Brandon, Solutions Architect from the Amazon Partner Network. We will start this webinar with a short definition of continuous delivery. We will then introduce you to Bamboo and what we call Elastic Bamboo. From there, Brandon will teach you all the concepts. He'll talk about Amazon EC2, EBS volumes, Amazon S3, and finally the AWS CodeDeploy, which has a bundled task in Bamboo. We'll then go over a real-life example that's about the strong Bamboo Cloud and AWS integration and how they help the customers solve the issues they were facing. And to have the best ending, Shemek will present a demo in a real environment and will go over all the concepts, settings, and configurations that we covered in previous chapters. And we'll then have the Q&A at the very end. Some quick housekeeping notes before we jump into the main topics. Your microphones are muted, so please use the Q&A panel to submit your questions. Once done with the presentation, I'll respond to as many questions as possible within the webinar time limit. This webinar is recorded and we will make the video available afterwards so you can refer to it or share it with your team. All right, let's get started. So what is continuous delivery? Continuous delivery is all about the release process. It's about taking a build, mapping it to a version number, and releasing it. In other words, it's the process of automating and improving the cycle of software delivery to make sure the software checked in on the main line is always in a state that can be deployed to users. A stable CD pipeline reduces risks by letting users find and resolve issues quickly, which will also lead to shorter release cycles. Bamboo is our continuous integration and delivery tool. It's available in both server and cloud, and it offers first-class support for the delivery aspect of continuous delivery. It connects automated builds, tests, and releases together in a single workflow. Some of Bamboo's strengths are the dedicated agents feature, its seamless integration with Jira, Stash, Bitbucket, and HipChat for full traceability, the ability to use it with Amazon EC2 to run builds, its integration with S3, EBS, and AWS CodeDeploy, deployment projects within the application, and of course, many more. What we call Elastic Bamboo is when Bamboo is set up to use Amazon EC2. Elastic Bamboo uses an AMI to create instances of agents in the EC2. Builds run on these Elastic agents in a similar way as to how they run on local and remote agents. Agents, as the name suggests, run Bamboo builds and deployments. Local agents run in the same process with the server, while remote agents run in their own separate process. Elastic agents are what we call the remote agents or instances of agents running in EC2. We recently had the opportunity to speak with one of our big customers about their continuous integration and delivery practices and how Bamboo Cloud and AWS have helped them along the way as the company was growing. Let's join Brandon and go over the concepts first. We will then come back to have a quick look at the problems this company faced and how they were able to resolve them.
Thanks, Seppi. So a quick introduction, I'm Brandon Chavez. I'm a solutions architect with Amazon Web Services. And today I'm going to talk to you about a couple of our core services at AWS that allow you to run Bamboo on top of them and take advantage of some of the features to make your experience running Bamboo elastic and flexible. So Amazon EC2 is our cloud computing platform. It's how you can run virtual machines in the cloud. And you can have Linux or Windows servers, a variety of OSs that you're familiar with. And the purpose of EC2 is to reduce the time required to obtain and boot these new server instances down to just a few minutes. So it allows you to scale capacity really quickly, both up and down, as your computing requirements change. So what this does is it changes the economics of cloud computing by allowing you to pay for only the capacity that you're actually going to use. EC2 is also built around providing developers the tools they need to build failure-resilient applications and isolate themselves from really common failure scenarios. So we've designed EC2 to make web-scale computing easier, and that's due to this resizable computing capacity and the configurable security and network controls. And what that boils down to is you end up having complete control over your resources. So the servers that you spin up, they can be started or terminated at your own speed, monitored as needed, and you can increase availability by deploying instances across multiple physical locations. You can also access your operating systems if it's Windows over remote desktop or if it's Linux over SSH. So it's not too terribly different than having a physical server sitting over in your data center in terms of access. So you have complete control, as I mentioned. You have root access to each one, and you can interact with them anyway, exactly as you would with any regular machine. You can stop your instance while retaining the data on the boot partition, and subsequently restart the same instance using our APIs. Instances can all be rebooted remotely using these APIs. And you also have access to things like console output of your instances. So elasticity is one of the core competencies of Amazon EC2. We enable you to increase or decrease capacity within minutes, not hours or days. You don't have to provision a new server and go set it up in your data center. You can simply make an API call to commission 1 or 100 or 1,000 server instances simultaneously. So of course, because this is all controlled with our web service APIs, your application can automatically scale itself up and down depending on its needs. Our data center footprint is global and it spans 5 continents with highly redundant clusters of data centers in each region. It is also expanding continuously, and we strive to add redundancy and add locations around the world to meet the needs of our customers. We also achieve economies of scale that help you reduce costs, and eventually we pass those cost savings onto you. So here we can talk a little bit about Bamboo and how it's designed to leverage some of these core competencies we just mentioned with EC2. Elastic Bamboo uses a remote agent built into an AMI, which is an Amazon machine image, that you can use to spin up instances of remote agents in Amazon EC2. So builds run on these Elastic agents in a similar way to how they run on maybe Bamboo running locally or on a remote server. There's some configuration settings that you can take control of in EC2, like the maximum number of Elastic instances. So this is the max number that you can run at any single given time. You might wish to decrease this value if you're concerned about your EC2 compute costs. But if you have a large number of concurrent job builds, you might want to increase that number. You can also do things like configure automatic termination of Elastic instances when your build process ends. So this controls whether your Elastic instances will just sit around waiting, or if they'll automatically shut down after they have no more work to do. You can also configure a shutdown delay, which controls how long an Elastic instance will wait before shutting down after the build process running on it terminates. So some of this configurability is due to some of the core competencies of EC2 running underneath. Another component of AWS you might want to consider using with Bamboo is Amazon EBS, which is Elastic Block Store. And these are persistent block devices that persist independently from the life of an instance. So for example, if you terminate an Elastic agent that has an EBS volume attached to it, that volume will still exist afterwards. And so you can attach it to a different Elastic agent and still access the data that's on that device. And we'll dig in a little bit more in the demo later on about how you can use EBS tightly with Elastic Bamboo. Another storage option you might consider is using Amazon S3. And this is our massively scalable and redundant and durable object storage. So this is storage for the internet. This is where you can keep all sorts of different assets, whether it's for a website or whether it's build artifacts for your Bamboo service. But the idea here is that you can grow without limits, and you do not have to pre-provision the storage that you think you're going to need. It simply scales with your actual storage needs. And of course, S3 is very secure, as there are many different companies and many different verticals using S3 for a variety of different workloads. And it's almost certain that we can accommodate whatever security requirements your application or use case require. So with an Atlassian cloud subscription, we include, or rather they include 25 gigabytes of free storage. And so this flexibility that S3 offers really enhances some of the offerings of Bamboo, and we'll talk about how you can use these things together a little bit more in the demo later on. The next service we think it's important to talk about is AWS CodeDeploy, which is a relatively new service of ours that helps you automate your code deployments. And the intention is that we allow you to deploy reliably and rapidly. So you can consistently deploy your application across multiple environments, so maybe like a development or a test or a production environment. And this service scales with your infrastructure, so you can deploy with CodeDeploy to either one EC2 instance or thousands at the same time. So we built CodeDeploy to offer a few benefits and advantages to our customers. It helps maximize your application availability by doing things like performing rolling updates across your EC2 instances, and also tracking application health according to configurable rules. So for example, if you notice a deployment isn't working properly or there's some errors or failures halfway through the deployment, you can stop that deployment and roll it back. This can help you minimize downtime, and the centralized control makes it easy to manage a deployment across vast fleets of different instances. So another benefit of using CodeDeploy is that I can easily integrate with many CI or CD workflows already. So for example, the integration with Elastic Bamboo makes a lot of sense. You can set it up with Bamboo so that after Bamboo builds a specific image or a binary, you can use CodeDeploy then to be triggered to deploy to specific EC2 instances or groups of EC2 instances. So we have the concept of a deployment group in CodeDeploy, and that allows you to specify instances via a tag or a VPC or a variety of different factors and target your deployments that way. So CodeDeploy allows you to easily launch and track the status of your deployments through either the AWS Management Console for a graphical option or the AWS CLI. But whichever one you choose, CodeDeploy gives you a detailed report that allows you to view things like when each application revision was deployed and to which instances it was deployed to, and which one of those deploys may have failed or didn't complete on time. And again, as we mentioned earlier, if a deployment doesn't seem to be working properly or you notice something is wrong, you can stop that deployment and roll back to a known good version. And this centralized control is a real big benefit of using CodeDeploy. That way you don't have to individually query the instances that your deploys are being made to. You can simply query APIs, or you can track it through the console and have a nice 10,000-foot view of everything that's going on. We're really happy about the partner ecosystem that's forming around CodeDeploy. And again, Elastic Bamboo is an excellent example of a service that can integrate with CodeDeploy and help facilitate a flawless CI/CD pipeline. And so we're going to show you a little bit about how you can actually build Bamboo in with things like EC2 and CodeDeploy and wrap up a nice CI/CD workflow all within AWS using Atlassian Bamboo. And so here's a high-level overview of what the architecture looks like when you use Bamboo to build and then push deployments via CodeDeploy to EC2 instances. So you can see here, we're able to grab or push artifacts to S3, and then we're able to create deployment options or deployment groups with CodeDeploy, and eventually roll that code out to individual deployment groups depending on how you've configured it. So we actually have a case study that shows how this works in practice, and so what I'll do is pass it back to Sepi here to talk a little bit about how customers have used this sort of architecture for a CI and CD workflow.
Thanks, Brandon. As mentioned before, the company in our case study is one of our big customers with a constantly growing Bamboo instance. They're a leading provider of vital earth and engineering data with about 12,000 employees worldwide. They currently have more than 50 repositories, about 30 Bamboo projects, more than 620 Bamboo plans, and lots of plan branches. With a fully cloud-based environment with Bamboo and AWS, they can easily manage running more than 50 builds at once these days. We asked them about the challenges they faced to get where they are today, and they were kind enough to share their story. They call it a journey, a process of studying issues, finding the right tools to handle them, and then setting them up correctly to get the best results. Let's have a quick look at what they faced along the way. So when they started using Bamboo, they had a server instance with 5 local agents, 30 remote agents running on different machines, and 10 remote agents running in VMs. There were 2 teams in charge of maintaining the server and all existing agents. As they were adding more and more Bamboo projects and plans, they needed to have more and more agents to run them. That means more machines or more VMs, and of course, more people to both sit down and estimate the type and cost of the extra resource they needed, and to take care of them once they're in place. This process was, I'd say, doable up to a certain point, but after that, the cost of maintenance and the number of people looking after that infrastructure was just getting out of control. So they did some consultation and looked at other options to manage their build pipeline better. And as a result, they fully switched to Bamboo Cloud and made it a company standard to use Elastic agents. By doing so, they could free the resources that were dedicated to managing and maintaining the hardware and VMs and use them to work on new projects instead. Also, they were not held back from new opportunities due to not having the right infrastructure. Another problem they were facing prior to using Elastic agents was inconsistency among different teams. Each team, depending on what they had access to, was using a different set of agents to run builds. And of course, this was causing build results, including logs and artifacts, to be stored in different locations. So if a developer or build engineer was moving from team A to team B and was assigned to run a certain build or plan, he had to learn what the agent's map looked like in the new team. Did it happen that there were 3 folders holding build data on a single machine? Yes. Was it confusing? Well, of course. Using Elastic agents company-wide resolved this issue and brought consistency across teams at all their different locations. New employees or those moving to different teams didn't need to be trained on how the agents are set up anymore. They know what to use to run builds and deployments now and where to find what they need. However, there are still situations that they exceptionally run a local or remote agent on a physical server to test a specific scenario. Switching to Elastic agents solved many of this company's problems, but not all of them. Elastic agents run on Elastic instances, and because an Elastic instance is stateless, so is the agent running on it. Since this company had many builds that required full checkout and lots of artifacts to be downloaded when starting Elastic instances, they started to see extremely slow builds. What they did to solve this problem and boost the speed was using EBS volumes and snapshots. They started using EBS volumes to customize Elastic agents so they're not created from scratch every time. Also, they started using EBS to store all their external resources. Another issue that showed up as the number of projects and builds was growing was running out of the cloud storage space. There is a limit of 25 gig when using Bamboo Cloud, and you might reach this limit sooner or later depending on how fast your build pipeline grows. But rest assured that we thought of a great solution before making decisions on this new storage limit. So when this company came to us and asked us what to do, we were happy to tell them about Bamboo's integration with Amazon S3. It's a very easy configuration process and fixed the storage problem for them completely. Another problem that's very common in big environments, including the company we're talking about, is when a number of hotfixes need to go out and have the highest priority to run before any other builds or deployments. Though having the right settings, they were not facing delays or slow builds. waiting for free agents to run critical builds was not going to work for them in the long run. One of the strongest Bamboo features that resolves this problem is the dedicated agents feature. What it means is being able to assign specific agents to critical builds or deployments in Bamboo. So when they need to run, that agent picks them up right away, and there is no need to wait in the queue for a free agent. And this is what this company did as soon as this feature became available. They started dedicating agents to critical build projects and plans, as well as some of their critical deployment projects. When you dedicate an agent, no other activity will be able to use that agent, unless it's dedicated to that activity as well. As teams grew, more engineers started to run deployments. There was no way to keep track of all the deployment processes across the company. Also, due to manual operations, they started seeing more and more human errors that were making the delivery process much slower. It was also affecting the product quality in some cases. Since their growth didn't seem to stop anytime soon, they had to find a way to run deployments while avoiding human errors as much as possible. The solution was using deployment projects in Bamboo and the bundled AWS CodeDeploy task. Deployment projects allow users to deploy releases of the software to configured environments, which makes it possible to ensure that the software checked in on the mainline is always in a state that can be deployed to users. Bamboo's bundled AWS CodeDeploy task can be used with both build and deployment projects. AWS CodeDeploy is fast, reliable, and keeps track of the whole deployment process. So integrating Bamboo with Amazon services, this big company has been able to stay innovative, scale, and keep the quality of their products. And if they were able to do it, you can set up a similar pipeline and get all the benefits too. Now, let's look at a demo and learn how these all work in a real environment.
Thank you, Sepideh. My name is Bruski, and I'm the architect for Bamboo, and I will now demo the things that Brandon and Seppi talked about on the previous slides. So, first, we need to set up Bamboo. To set up Elastic Bamboo, you need credentials to your Amazon Web Services account. So at this point, you either have this account or need to create one. Either way, you will be able to generate your AWS access key and secret access key, which will let you access web services such as EC2, CodeDeploy, and S3, which will be used throughout this demo. Conveniently, I already have them stored in my password manager. The other choice you have to make on this screen is the choice of region. It doesn't really matter which region you choose, as long as you're just playing around. But keep in mind that some services, such as CodeDeploy, are not available across all regions, so I suggest that you choose US East, which is the safest choice. At this point, I should also mention that the screen you've just seen is specific to our cloud version of Bamboo. If you use server version, the configuration will look slightly different, and we'll have a look at it in a second. This is the main Elastic Bamboo configuration page, and this is also the page which you would use to enter your credentials in the server version. Right here, you can also alter your region setting and enter a new access key if you need to. We've already have it configured on the previous screen, so we don't need to do anything here. But let me go through some other essential configuration options available on this screen. This is a field which lets you enter the maximum number of Elastic agents. This is an easy way to control your costs. The other set of interesting configuration options is the automatic Elastic Instance Management. This is basically the process that starts and stops instances that will run your builds in the future. So for the purposes of this demo, I will choose aggressive, which means the instances will be started fast and there will be quite a lot of them started if they are only needed. Aggressive may be a good option for you if you run a huge instance with a lot of builds, but if you're running something smaller, you probably want to choose something more conservative. I will now quickly tweak the settings for the allowed Bamboo, non-Bamboo instance. You don't have to worry about this. We are using a shared account, so we need to modify this. That's it, we are good to go. Now what we need is a build plan. I have already prepared a simple build plan, it doesn't do much. Let's look at the setup. I have one stage with one default job, and that job has one script task. The script task basically echoes success into a file called artifacts.txt. I have defined this as a proper Bamboo artifact, which means it will be, after the build finishes, it will be bundled with the build. We are ready to run the build. Let's see what happens. Now, as you can see, there are no agents available to build this job. This is because we are relying on the Elastic instances, which will spin up automatically. Let's see whether this really happens. This is the main Elastic instance monitoring page. As you can see, there are no instances running at this point. As you can see, Bamboo has just detected that a new instance is needed and spun up an Elastic instance using one of the stock images available. As the instance is spinning up, Bamboo will try to give you some information about the progress, such as the Elastic instance being started on the instance, or the status of the instance, or the Elastic agent itself. As you can see, the Elastic agent is now available. It is idle. Let's have a look at the build page. As you can see, the build has finished and it's green, so everything went fine. Let's see whether the artifacts are there. Yes. So now if we run a second build, or actually a third one in this case, it should go much quicker because the instance is already available. As you can see, Bamboo has detected that there is an Elastic agent already available, so it's just a matter of seconds before it picks up the build, runs it, and we should get the green build again. Okay, both Brandon and Sepideh mentioned a feature of Amazon Web Services called S3, Simple Storage Service. Let's see how easy it is to set it up for use with Bamboo to store your artifacts. Just go to the main administration screen, choose Artifact Storage, and choose Amazon S3 as your storage medium. A bucket will be automatically selected for you. You can obviously modify this, but let's stick to the default for now. Click Save. Now we go back to the plan and run it again. Now, it will be kind of hard to prove that the artifact is actually stored on S3 now. When we were still using the standard Atlassian cloud storage, when I clicked on the artifact link, it just opened. That's because the server had the file available locally and served it like a regular file. In case of S3, the server will send us a redirect to S3, so we won't see it on the screen directly. Instead, we got a download option, that is, if everything went well. And it did. The other thing we're going to talk about today is Amazon CodeDeploy service and its integration with Bamboo in the form of CodeDeploy task. The setup of this is slightly more complicated, so let's go through this before we continue with the demo. To use the CodeDeploy task, you obviously need a Bamboo agent. Bamboo agent will upload your application to S3 and tell CodeDeploy service that it's available and ready for deployment. And the CodeDeploy service, using the definitions made by you, will deploy your application to deployment groups, which are basically sets of EC2 instances. Let's have a look at how it looks like in the AWS console. We have 5 EC2 instances. They all belong to the same CodeDeploy group, which is defined for our application. Within the CodeDeploy service, we've defined an application, and within that application, we've defined the deployment group, which consists of 5 instances, the instances you've just seen in our EC2 console. There are some interesting configuration options within the deployment group configuration, so let's have a look at them. The first interesting configuration option is how Amazon knows which EC2 instances should take part in deployment. In this case, we are using a tag with the value set to webinar. The other interesting option is the deployment configuration. It basically tells Amazon how to perform the deployment, whether you want to go one at a time, all at once, or half at a time. Let's choose all at once to make it fast. This was the AWS console part of the configuration. Let's briefly go through my browser. I have opened 5 tabs. Each one points to one of the instances in the deployment group. As the deployment proceeds, you should see updates here because all these tabs are set to auto-refresh every 5 seconds. Finally, the Bamboo side of the configuration. Fortunately, it's quite easy. Let's have a look at the tasks. I've already prepared a skeleton of our job. It only contains the source code checkout task, which will check out our application sources. They contain our basic web app and also the application definition file used by Amazon CodeDeploy service. What we need now is the actual Amazon CodeDeploy task, so let's add it. Now, there are a couple of configuration options you will need to fill out here. One is your credentials. I'm using my predefined credentials I showed you earlier. The other one is region. We've discussed the choice of the region at the beginning of this webinar. Then you have to decide where your deployment bundle is located in your checkout. In our case, we want to bundle the whole directory, so we don't have to worry about this. The other option we need to have a look at is the destination bucket for the bundle. So the place where Bamboo will upload the binaries and the place where the CodeDeploy service will take them from for further deployment. Let's just put in Bamboo CodeDeploy here. Finally, we have to decide which application we want to deploy. We've already defined the webinar application, so let's just choose it here. The deployment group will be chosen automatically because there is only one. Let's click Save. And our plan should be ready for deployment. Bamboo is constantly monitoring the source code repository, so whenever we make a change to the source code, it should get automatically deployed to all these 5 instances that I've shown earlier. So let's make a simple change, which in our case will be a simple adjustment to the index.html file. That's it. Now we commit it and push it to the repo. Bamboo should pick it up very, very soon. As you can see, the deployment is now running. So now let's observe these 5 tabs. They should start gradually changing to the new title we've chosen. Here it is. And another one, third one, fourth one, and fifth. It will take some time for Bamboo to notice this, but we should expect a result in a couple of seconds. There you go, we have a green build. We just rolled out our application to 5 instances in EC2. This concludes the demo I had for today. There are a couple of things you may consider if you want to roll this out in production environment. Specifically, you probably noticed that the deployment and builds were coupled. So basically, whatever you built ended up deployed on potentially production immediately. With Bamboo, you can actually decouple that quite easily. Bamboo has a special feature called deployments. Bamboo deployments do exactly what the name suggests. So you do your whole CI loop using builds. You build, you test, and eventually when you decide that a set of artifacts is ready for production or whatever environment you want to deploy them in, you hand them over to the deployment part of Bamboo. Within deployment part of Bamboo, you can also use the CodeDeploy task, and the configuration is exactly the same. Deployments themselves are quite a big feature, so we're not going to cover them today. So thank you for listening. That's all from me. Over to you, Sepideh.
Thanks for the great demo, Shemek. It's now time to answer some of your questions, and remember to check back the webinar registration page within a week to see more Q&A. We will also send you a reminder email. Many questions were submitted, and do I really want to answer all of them? I know it's not possible in the short amount of time that we've left today, so we'll have more questions answered on the webinar page in a week. Let's look at the first question. Is it possible to use ECS with Bamboo? Yes, you can use Amazon EC2 Container Service or ECS with Bamboo, but it's not built in yet. You have to use an add-on for it. So just go to the Atlassian Marketplace and search for the utility plugin. It's very easy to install this add-on, and it will allow you to use ECS with Bamboo. And please let me add this, that this is on our roadmap to have ECS support built in, and we'll soon have it in the application. Next question. What happens to the artifacts when we hit the limit of 25 gig and don't have S3 configured yet? A little bit of information here. So this 25 gig of storage limit was enforced this August after we already had the Bamboo S3 integration in place. And to answer your question, your artifacts will be stored in the Atlassian cloud until they're expired. So you won't be losing any artifacts. And then your new artifacts will go to Amazon S3 after you have it set up. Are there any plans to be able to use Elastic Bamboo with AMIs hosted in Asia? I think you should be able to do this already. If you change the region selected in the Bamboo EC2 configuration, you can select an AMI that's closer to you. Just make sure you're changing the region in Elastic Bamboo configuration. You can't do this on the image configuration page. Moving to the next question. We have deployments in different geographical locations across the world. Is it possible to create multiple Elastic agents in different AWS regions? This will help speeding up the deployments for us. No, it's not possible, but you can switch regions after you start the agent. There might be some side effects though, so keep that in mind if you decide to switch regions. What is the difference between adding capabilities to Elastic agents and normal remote agents? My Elastic agent capabilities are not automatically detected. Well, in a normal remote agent, capabilities are detected automatically, and custom capabilities can be added at the agent configuration screen. For Elastic agents, capabilities are associated with the AWS image, and there's no way to detect them automatically since they should be defined before you start the instance. And also, like if you search for configure Elastic agent capabilities, there is a detailed document that you can refer to and find like answers to your other questions regarding Elastic agents capability settings. Moving to the next question, our AWS agent sometimes goes to terminate mode. Although Bamboo has disabled agents management, is this behavior caused by some Bamboo settings or it's because of some Amazon settings? Well, there are a few reasons for EC2 instances getting terminated by Bamboo. If the instance loses the connection to your Bamboo server, it gets terminated automatically. This is by default to avoid any charges, unwanted charges, because the connection cannot be reestablished. If we're talking about Bamboo Cloud, this can be caused by Bamboo getting restarted for weekly maintenance, and it's by design to not have an EC2 instance stay alive with Bamboo, because they're meant to be used as on-demand services. Though if you want to always have an instance ready for builds, you can use the scheduling feature to get Bamboo start up an instance for you whenever it meets a certain condition. We would like to create build plans that run Bamboo agents on the same repository and same project, but on different target AWS accounts. Is it possible to configure more than one AWS account for Elastic Bamboo? It's unfortunately not possible at the moment. Users can only configure one AWS account for Elastic Bamboo. But I know that we already have an open request for it. So please search for the request and add your vote there, and we'll hopefully make this happen very soon. Next question. We are using deployment projects in Bamboo, and they're extremely helpful for the type of deployments we do. But we can't find a way to use the automatic agent management feature that we use for builds. What are we missing? Yeah, deployment projects are very useful. I'm glad that you're using them and you're also finding them helpful. And to answer your question, I think you might be running an old version of Bamboo. I'd say probably older than Bamboo 5.6, because this issue was filed as a critical bug and was fixed in Bamboo 5.6 about a year ago. So it's a check your Bamboo version and upgrade to have this problem resolved for you. Next question. I have set up new image configurations, started them, and I have SSH'd into them, but can't find out which image configuration Bamboo uses when starting an instance. How does Bamboo decide which one to use? Well, Bamboo basically uses image capabilities to find a matching image. You can prevent it from using some of the images by simply disabling them. And also you can use the dedicated agents feature and dedicate an image to specific builds, as it was also mentioned during the case study. Capabilities and requirements settings are what Bamboo uses to match agents with jobs. So when capabilities of an agent match the requirements of a job, that agent picks up the job and runs it. With the dedicate agents feature, you assign an agent to a build plan or to a job or deployment project, which is at, say, one level higher than the requirements capabilities settings check. So jobs with dedicated agents have already passed that capabilities requirements matching stage, and have an assigned agent that will run them whenever they're ready. And this is extremely helpful, especially for big environments that are dealing with a lot of hot fixes and critical builds that need to run right away without waiting in a queue for free agents. Next question. The stock AMIs that I see in my account don't have Docker capabilities. Shouldn't the Amazon Ubuntu stock images have Docker capabilities now? Also, the Windows version is still 2008. Great question. Docker is installed, but we didn't add capabilities to the accounts for technical reasons. So you have to add that capability manually. Also, since you mentioned Windows, please remember that Docker is only available on 64-bit Linux images. It doesn't work on Windows without a VM, a separate VM. So Windows images don't have Docker capabilities. When I start an EC2 instance, it is creating an EBS volume that is not being automatically deleted. This is taking up a lot of space and has become a big problem. How can I clean up the volumes automatically when the instance is shut down? I would say one thing to check is if the delete and termination checkbox is unchecked or disabled. If we're talking about custom EBS AMIs. But if that checkbox is selected and you still see this problem, I would say it's best to contact our support team so they can get more details and help you find the root cause. Is it possible to use different versions of Java on server and agents, or the versions should match? Well, as long as the versions you use are all supported, they don't have to match. Have a look at our supported platforms document, depending on the version of Bamboo you're running, and it will show you all the supported versions of Java. Moving to the next question, I need to use 128B AES encryption in my tests and have to install the JCE USB jars. Is there a way to do this in Bamboo using one of the provided AMIs? Yes, to install the jars, all you need to do is to put the jar somewhere you can download it from, or like on an EBS, and then you can use the instance setup script in the image configuration, which uses root rights to run, to copy that file wherever you want it to go. So yes, it is possible to do this using one of the provided AMIs. Next question, we have a local server dedicated to development, and we use Bamboo Cloud and EC2. How can I deploy to our local server? Can I connect Bamboo to our VPN? Well, you can connect your agents, and the feature you're looking for and the feature you need is called VPC. There are detailed AWS documents about it that you can read. From the Bamboo side, it's very simple to set this up. All you need to do is to set up VPC first, of course, and then choose the subnet in the image configuration. Next question, when I try to add a custom AMI using the image configuration page, there is an empty drop-down list in the product field, and I can't proceed leaving it empty. It says selected product null does not match detected platform. How do I fix this? Let me look at my running Bamboo here. I think you're talking about the product field under create elastic image configuration and then elastic image configuration details. And honestly, the only thing I can think of is being a permission issue, because the product list is populated from the spot price data. So if you have permissions, well, additional permissions on your account, it will block Bamboo from accessing the spot price. So you won't see anything in the product list. So check your permissions and get in touch with us if that's not the issue. So we get details and help you fix this. I think we have time for one more question. Does the CodeDeploy allow deployments in the Sydney region for Bamboo server users now? I see 4 regions in my Bamboo Cloud instance, but only US East and West in my 593 server instance. Yes, Sydney region is supported. The plugin gets the regions where CodeDeploy is available from the AWS SDK. So you need to update the SDK version to add the new regions. There are still many questions that went unanswered. As mentioned earlier, we'll update the webinar page with some bonus Q&A for you in a week and respond to more questions there, so stay tuned for that. We will also send out the recording soon. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining our webinar today. We wish you all a very good day. Take care.